The Shocking Truth: Why Your Life is Slipping Away. Alan Watts' Wisdom. Imagine you're on a train, racing through the countryside, staring out the window at the blur of scenery flashing past. Every time you try to focus on something, an old farmhouse, a tree, a shadow, it's already gone. That's your life, and you don't even realize it. You're speeding through moments, always looking ahead, never quite arriving. Now, here's the shocking part. It's not just happening to you passively. You're participating in it. You're helping your own life slip away. Not intentionally, but through the way you've been taught to experience time, success, meaning, and identity. This isn't some vague spiritual idea. It's a fundamental flaw in how modern people relate to the present moment. And Alan Watts, the great philosopher and speaker, who bridged Eastern wisdom with Western confusion, called it out decades ago. He saw the trap we were in, and he warned us. You're so busy trying to live that you've forgotten how to be alive. Let's start with the lie. The lie is that life is a journey toward a goal. That where you are right now is just a stepping stone to somewhere more important. You're told to delay happiness until graduation, until you get the job, until the promotion, the house, the vacation, the perfect partner, the perfect version of yourself. But as Watts brilliantly said, this mindset turns life into a kind of musical chairs of postponement. You're always practicing, never performing, always chasing, never arriving. The future becomes your God. The present becomes just a means to an end.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
And because of that, most of us live as if we're in a rehearsal for a play we'll never actually perform. We live in plans, not in presence. We survive instead of thrive. We're taught to believe that fulfillment lies in becoming something, not in being something. That you are valuable when you become successful, when you achieve something impressive. But Watts flips that completely on its head. He says, you are under no obligation to be the same person you were 5 minutes ago, and more radically, you are not a product, you are a process. You're not here to become, you're here to be. Not to reach a peak, but to dance through the movement. And yet we fight this idea. Deep down, we cling to the illusion of linear progression, that we start at point A, struggle through B, and finally reach C. We think that's what life should look like. But here's the real bombshell. Watts believed that life is not a journey, it's a dance. You don't dance to get to the end of the song, you dance to dance. And the moment you begin treating life like a task to complete, rather than a moment to experience, you start speeding up the train. You miss the beauty, the pauses, the in-between spaces where meaning actually lives. Think about how you breathe. You don't inhale so that you can get the inhale over with. You don't eat only to stop being hungry. You breathe, you eat, you laugh, you love, because the doing itself is the point. But somewhere along the way, we began to treat every moment like a ticket to something else. You're not watching a sunset, you're capturing it for your story. You're not talking to a friend, you're crafting an update for your identity. Even rest has become a performance. A productivity hack, a thing you schedule so you can work harder tomorrow. Watts warned us that this way of living isn't just inefficient, it's spiritually bankrupt. It disconnects you from the very thing you're craving, a sense of now, of being alive, of depth. He said, the meaning of life is just to be alive. It is so plain and so obvious and so simple. And yet everybody rushes around in a great panic as if it were necessary to achieve something beyond themselves. But you are not a project, you are not your resume, you are not a task to optimize. Here's the hard question. How many moments of your life have you missed because you were somewhere else in your head? How many walks, conversations, meals, touches, thoughts didn't land because you were looking past them? What challenges you to ask something even deeper? What if this moment, right now, with all its imperfections, was enough? What if you didn't have to justify your existence through goals or titles or output? What if your only job was to be here, fully, fearlessly, attentively? This isn't about being passive, it's about being present. It's not about giving up ambition, it's about releasing the illusion that your worth is somewhere out there waiting for you to chase it down. Because the more you chase, the more it slips away. Like that train through the countryside, life becomes a blur, and one day you look up and realize you were always 5 steps ahead of where you actually were, and that's the shocking truth. Your life is slipping away, not because it's too short, but because you're never in it. You're always just slightly behind or slightly ahead, never fully here. The paradox of pursuit. Why wanting life too much makes you miss it completely. We've been trained to believe that desire is the engine of progress, that if you want something badly enough and work hard enough and push with enough force, life will eventually reward you with happiness, fulfillment, and meaning. But Alan Watts dared to point out the contradiction at the heart of this mindset. Because the more you chase life, its pleasures, its purpose, its right path, the more it moves just beyond your grasp. Like a carrot dangling in front of a donkey, fulfillment is always one step ahead of where you are. You start believing that this moment isn't quite enough, that you aren't quite enough, that your life is an equation waiting for you to solve it. And in that belief, in that constant reaching, you miss the very thing you were trying to get closer to, the experience of being alive. Watts would say that pursuit is not wrong, it's just misunderstood. Wanting is natural. The universe moves through desire, the stars explode because of energy imbalance. Life grows toward the sun. But humans are the only species that make desire into anxiety, the only ones who confuse motion with meaning. We've taken the simple act of wanting a better life and turned it into a neurotic loop of self-rejection. "I'll be happy when" becomes a mantra. But the problem with that is you're always placing your peace on hold, locking it inside an imaginary future that never fully arrives. So what happens when you try to live without this kind of grasping? That's where the paradox shows up. Because when you stop needing life to pay off, you begin to experience it directly. When you stop trying to own happiness, happiness visits you like an old friend. When you stop clenching, everything softens. Watts compared this to trying to float in water. The more you struggle to stay afloat, the more you sink. But the moment you relax completely, you rise. That's the paradox of pursuit. The harder you try to be okay, the more you confirm to yourself that you're not. The more you chase peace, the more you stir up the mud. And yet, most people live trapped inside this feedback loop. More effort, less presence. More goals, less joy. More ambition, less awareness. Watts saw this clearly in how we treat time. We think of time as something we can control, measure, conquer. We schedule our days to the minute. We quantify our progress. But Watts said that time is not a line, it's a rhythm. A song. You don't listen to a song to get to the end. You listen to enjoy each note. You don't dance to arrive at a destination. You dance to feel the dance. And if you're trying to get through life as fast as possible, you've missed the entire point. You're stepping on the beat instead of flowing with it. Ask yourself something uncountable. How much of your life is about getting through something rather than being in it? How much of your energy is spent trying to be somewhere else, someone else, in some imagined better version of your life? What if the better version isn't in the future at all, but right here, quietly waiting for your attention? We treat the present as a stepping stone, but Alan Watts reminds us it's the whole path. And when we truly grasp that, something inside shifts. You start seeing that the grasping itself is the problem, not the desire, but the attachment to outcome, the obsession with control, the unwillingness to let life happen through you rather than constantly being forced by you. Letting go of pursuit doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you care more wisely. You move with intention, not tension. You live with purpose, but without panic. You work, but not to become worthy. You love, but not to be completed. You act, but without the background noise of, am I doing this right? And in that space, in that stillness, you find a clarity that's been buried under years of striving. Watts would tell us that the goal is not to escape desire, but to see through its illusion, to realize that the present moment is not the cost of your future. It's the source of everything real. And until you learn to live in that moment, everything else is theater. You're a character in a story that never quite lands, chasing a climax that keeps being rewritten. So here's a wild, beautiful idea. What if everything you've been trying to become, you already are, just buried under layers of expectation, distraction, and false urgency? What if your life isn't something to fix, but something to witness? Because the pursuit ends not when you get what you want, but when you finally understand at a deep level that this is it and always has been. The myth of the self, why who you think you are is just a disguise. Next, to take the gloves off. Everything you think you are, your name, your achievements, your personality traits, your past, your future dreams, it's all a mask. A convincing one, a socially accepted one, sometimes a very successful one, but a mask nonetheless. And Alan Watts made this his life's mission, to peel that mask back and show you the space beneath it. Not because who you think you are is bad, but because it's incomplete. And as long as you identify only with that surface self, the ego, the performer, the planner, the thinker, you'll continue to suffer, to grasp, and to miss the deeper, more fluid truth of who and what you really are. Watts used to say, quote, "Trying to define yourself is like trying to bite your own teeth. That's the trap. You think you're this fixed, separate, individual entity moving through a world of other separate entities, but in reality, you are not separate from the world at all. You are what the universe is doing right here, right now. You didn't arrive in the world, you grew out of it, just like a wave grows out of the ocean." The idea of the self as something detached from everything else is the greatest illusion of all. And it's that illusion that causes your suffering, your anxiety, your fear of death, your endless comparison with others. Because when you think you're separate, you always feel incomplete. The ego, the psychological story you carry about yourself, is not evil. It's necessary. It helps us function. It gives us a role to play. But problems start when we confuse the role with the reality. When we believe we are only the mask, when we mistake the tool for the totality. Imagine you're at a costume party and you forget you're wearing a mask. You look in the mirror and think, "That's me." Suddenly, every comment about the costume feels personal. Every compliment boosts your pride. Every insult cuts deep. You've forgotten that you are not the mask. You're the one underneath it. This is what's called the veil of Maya, the illusion of separateness. And modern life reinforces this illusion in every possible way. We're always branding ourselves, comparing profiles, measuring metrics that have nothing to do with our actual being. We're encouraged to curate, to polish, to optimize. But all of this reinforces the idea that we are objects trying to become better objects, when in truth, we are processes, experiences, consciousness in motion. We are verbs pretending to be nouns. So ask yourself, who would you be without your resume, without your social identity, without your reputation, without even your name? Could you still locate yourself not as a thought, but as an experience? Could you feel the raw sensation of being not as someone in control, but as something happening? This is where what leads us to the edge. Because once you truly see through the ego, not destroy it, but see through it, what's left? A kind of luminous emptiness, a space that isn't scary but sacred. You realize that your deepest self isn't a thing at all. It's awareness, it's presence. It's the field in which all thoughts, all emotions, all identities arise and dissolve. And in that realization, something amazing happens. The tension disappears. The need to prove yourself, to protect yourself, to compare yourself, it fades. Because you're no longer defending a mask. You're simply being. And that being is fluid, connected, and free. This is not about giving up your personality or renouncing the world. It's about no longer being trapped by the idea that you are the one pulling all the strings. Watts would laugh and say, "You don't beat your heart, you don't grow your hair, you don't digest your food, so why do you think you're running the show?" The same intelligence that moves the stars moves through you. And once you stop clinging to the illusion of control, you start participating in life from a place of flow, not friction. You become less afraid of change because you know you were never fixed to begin with. You stop clinging to identity because identity was always a costume for consciousness. You become a little more playful, a little more open, a little more in love with the mystery of it all. So here's the real question. Are you ready to stop being who you think you are? Because what's waiting beneath the mask is everything you've been searching for outside of it. The final illusion, why you were never separate from life in the first place. Everything we've explored so far, chasing the future, mistaking identity for reality, missing the moment, is built on one fundamental illusion, that you are separate from life, that there's a you in here trying to manage a world out there. But this separation is an idea, not a fact. Alan Watts said it best. You are not a stranger here. You are not a visitor. You are not something that came into this world. You came out of it, like a leaf from a tree. Take that in for a moment. Really let it land, because if you see it, really see it, everything changes. You realize that the anxiety, the fear, the sense of not belonging, it all comes from believing you're somehow standing outside the flow of existence, trying to jump in, trying to get it right. But what if you were never outside of it at all? What if life isn't something happening to you, but something happening as you? This isn't spiritual poetry, it's a deep philosophical insight, and it dismantles the false premise that has kept most people trapped in an artificial struggle. If you believe you are a separate self trying to control life, then everything becomes a fight. You're always negotiating with reality, trying to get it to match your expectations, and every moment that doesn't line up feels like failure. But when you drop the illusion of separateness, when you start to feel yourself as part of the whole, like a wave that belongs to the ocean, everything softens. You no longer need to force life, you are life. You move with it, not against it. Watts often compared this to music. Life isn't a problem to solve, it's a song to hear, a rhythm to move with. And just like in music, there are dissonances and climaxes and quiet moments, but none of them are mistakes. They are all necessary. They are all part of the unfolding. If you were truly separate from life, you could stand back and critique it like an outsider, but you're not. You're in the song. You are the song. This understanding is the ultimate freedom, not because it gives you power over life, but because it frees you from the need to have power in the first place. You stop obsessing over what's next because you finally see what's now. You stop needing to define who you are because you've realized the you that was trying to define everything was just another wave in the ocean pretending to be the sea. You've never been separate. You've just forgotten. The world doesn't need you to chase it. It needs you to wake up to it, to open your eyes and see that the present moment is not some waiting room before real life begins. It is real life, the only life. And it's here, now, in the space between your thoughts, in the sound of your breath, in the stillness you've been running from. So, ask yourself one last time, what would change if you stopped trying to grip life and instead allowed yourself to be it? Not the actor, not the watcher, not the victim or the planner, but the process, the unfolding, the dance. Because the shocking truth isn't just that your life is slipping away, it's that you were never separate from it to begin with. You are the moment you've been waiting for.